All right, welcome to the July 2022 Mayday Monday. We are coming to you on again. It'll be July 4th, so Independence Day. Hopefully, you all are getting a chance to celebrate our country's independence and the summer. I know we're right in the middle of the summer, so we'll get started here. Let's get started first by recognizing those firefighters that we lost since the last time we were together. A North Carolina firefighter was found deceased in his bunk at work. It was a driver engineer from Florida, suffered an apparent heart attack. A firefighter ex-chief from New York experienced a medical emergency during some training. Another engineer paramedic from Florida suffered an apparent heart attack. A lieutenant in Philadelphia was killed in the collapse of a fire building. That one was, I think they thought the fire was under control, and then the building collapsed. It was trapping several people and killing lieutenant. Of two volunteer firefighting brothers in Texas were killed in a brush truck collision when, as they were responding, a car, I think, pulled out in front or hit them, and it turned over, and two brothers. And a firefighter from Kansas suffered an apparent heart attack while on the scene of a building fire. So please, if you will, remember these fire service members and those affected by their deaths. To review real quick, last month, we looked at the Charleston Sofa Superstore and that incident, right? Remember, if you didn't get a chance, check out the podcast. We talked to three members that were involved in the incident, the recovery, and that fire in the department. So hopefully, please go look at that. Again, a horrible incident there. And those members really give us a lot of good information to take from that fire. With that, I hope you were able to kind of get out and work on your commercial building fire guidelines, procedures, and what your plan is so that we're prepared for when that fire does come out. This month, we're going to focus on Houston Fire Department and bring to you the life and times and the death of a firefighter, Danny Groover. Danny was a 20-year member of the fire department and died in a house fire in the outside the city, in the city, but out in the residential area. So with us, we're going to talk to Clyde Gordon of the Houston Fire Department. Sir, can you just take a few moments here and introduce yourself? Tell us about you and what you're doing.
Yeah, my name's Clyde Gordon. I'm a district chief or battalion chief for the city of Houston. I work in the downtown district, so District 8 covers most of downtown, and then inside the loop, a majority of inside the loop. I've been with the fire department now almost 33 years, and I do some speaking and training also with FD Tactics and then on my own. So,
yeah, speaking of that, that's kind of what this was a tough connection with you, trying to get you pinned down to talk. I will thank Dennis Laguerre for making the connection and starting this whole thing. But you say downtown. Yeah, I thought like Houston had like 4 downtowns.
Yeah, we have like 14 high-rise districts now, but when you look at if you think of Houston and think of what most people think of downtown when you look on the internet and see the picture, that's me. It's actually downtown, about 350 high-rises. Then we go down from about 800 square feet to several million square feet in our district because we cover several what used to be called wards in our territory. So it's a diverse territory, lots of stuff going on, really busy, but it's enjoyable because it's for a chief. It's you got to kind of have a lot of assets, and you got to have your mind working because you can do just about anything down there.
Yeah, no, I get it. I understand that. All right, before we get into, we'll talk about the city here in a minute, but before we get into that, let's talk about Danny. Danny was a firefighter there, and I understand he worked for you for a time.
Yeah, so Danny was the ultimate nice guy. Danny and I met probably I was in the fire department just a few years when he and I met each other. I knew his dad. His dad was an engine captain and worked in my area. And I was a paramedic at the time, and Danny was coming on. He had been a medic in the Army, I believe. And the first time I ever met him, he threw vomit all over me from a cardiac arrest. So it kind of like ingrained his face in my mind because I wasn't really happy at the moment. But Danny was just, I always say he was like a puppy. I mean, you just loved him. He was just the nicest guy in the world. Always laughing, always kind of silly and goofy. Wasn't, I'm not going to say he didn't take the job seriously, but he always had a really good time. And he and I kind of worked together and would work on separate shifts. And for several times, we kind of passed in the night. We'd work around or near each other for a few years. Then one of us would move on or get promoted or whatever, and we'd miss each other. And then a year or so before he was killed, he came to work for me for less than a year, but he was there with me.
So yeah, so what I see, he joined in '93. Was his dad was still on the job there?
Yes, sir. Yeah, his dad was still on the job. Probably then, I'm just guessing, he probably had 20 or so years back then. He retired not too long, I guess, after Danny got there.
So at the time of his death, he was 46 years old. He was married. His wife, Elia, he had 3 sons. At the time, they were grown, right? Corey, Marcus, and Thomas. Like you said, his father was a retired captain with the Houston Fire Department, and Danny spent a lot of time as a paramedic. Is that so? They're all firefighter medics, or were they just medics?
Yes, sir. So the Houston Fire Department, you either come in as a firefighter EMT or you go as a firefighter medic. And once you're designated as a medic, you typically do 5 or 6 years on the medic unit. That's kind of the agreement. And then you can get off of that if they have someone to replace you. Danny was one of those that I don't think he really had a whole lot of interest in the fireground, and he was more on the medical side. So he stayed on the medic unit for 20 some odd years, which is really a rarity there because they're so busy. Most guys can't handle that for 20 years, but that was kind of his thing, and he liked it, and that's where he stayed, and that's where he was when he came to work for me.
Good. No, yeah, everything I've read, I mean, the news reports and stuff, that's one thing that everybody mentioned was he was a nice guy, really loving guy.
He was always, we'd relieve him on duty, and sometimes you'd be like, Danny, where's the cardiac monitor? And he'd laugh and giggle in his silly way, and he'd be like, well, I don't really remember, you'd have to like backtrack to figure out where in the world or what hospital he had left it at, and it's kind of frustrating for us, but if you think about it, it was pretty funny. He just didn't take anything really very seriously. He just enjoyed kind of going through life and doing his thing. But the picture you're showing, that's the way he looked all the time. And just a super nice guy, happy guy, go-lucky guy, enjoyable guy to be around.
Yeah, sounds like it. So tell me about Houston. You talk about again. I mentioned that there's I hear that there's 3 downtowns, 4 downtowns.
Right.
But what?
So
Houston's got to have some residential. Huh?
Houston is 650 square miles, around 4 million people, something like that, I believe still. I always tell people it's like New York that someone stepped on and just squished it all out into place. It has, I think now 14 high-rise districts, which is probably as big as a lot of cities around. It's just a big place, and it's really busy. And the biggest thing is we don't have zoning. So I have a picture somewhere of a fire that was in a commercial warehouse that was that exposed a 1-story residential that was next to a mid-rise residential. It's all on the same block. So that's kind of the way the city is. If you can build it there, they don't care. They just let you build it. So you never know what you're going to make when you come around the corner.
So can you see the map?
Yes, sir.
So that is you talk about downtown. Now I know this would be that inside there, that
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
right in the middle of the city.
Right in the middle of the city. They always say Houston's an hour away from Houston. So if you're on the west side and want to go to the east side, it's going to take you an hour to get there. So it's a big, big place. And we have, let's see, right at 100 fire stations now. So it's spread out. And we have where Danny ended up is in the northeast side of town in Kingwood, which is more of a residential area that was annexed several years ago and little slower, a little quieter. It's called the livable forest. So it's not like the downtown area.
So on the map, all that white area is not city.
I can't see anymore. Let me grab my glasses. Let's see. East Little York. Yeah, so the first orange circle that you see around that has the white, yeah, right there, that's going to be Beltway 8. So we have 3 loops that go around the city. So everything inside that's going to be city. And then the outer loop is 99. So I'm covering that inner loop there, the inside one. Yeah, no, bigger than that, where it says Greater Heights and that right there. So that circle right there, yeah. I'm either on most of that, not all of it, but I'm either first chief or second chief. So that's the inner loop. And then that outer loop is most of that's in the city, but you can see there is some that they've annexed outside of that.
So I hear Spring, right? Where is Spring in
Spring's
this?
going to be north, straight up 45. So you see George Bush Airport, you're going to go to that outer loop. So the almost basically the top of your picture, go up there and that's going to be Spring.
I had friends that live there.
Yeah. So there, you would not know the difference between Houston and Spring other than when you saw the sign. It's just all commercialized. And I live almost 2 hours outside of Houston because it takes an hour and a half to get away from what looks like Houston.
Is there a lot of guys on the job that live that far out?
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, a lot of us, most of us don't live. It's just too much, too busy. You know, you spend all your time there and then you want to get out in the country and relax a little bit. So a lot of guys drive a long way to get here.
But there are neighborhoods, right? I mean, I know I got a picture here of like I don't remember where this section was, maybe northeast in the city.
Yeah, so your top left, that's going to be the downtown area. That's where I'm stationed, is right by that big white one on the right. And that's just down there, about 350 high rises down there that we deal with. And then to the right, I'm not sure where that's going to be. It's probably the 5th Ward, I think.
Yes,
those are all what we call a shotgun house. You know, that's right around our territory. Also, where the city itself is surrounded by neighborhoods like that. And then your bottom, it looks like the Galleria area, which is the next, which is about 4 miles from me. That would be another considered a high-rise district, and it's huge. It's probably about the size of Austin. So there's a lot going on there.
Yeah. So I like to, when I do this, I worked in DC and we were about I would say 11,000 people per square mile. Now where I work, we're like 65 people per square mile. And looking at Houston, it's reported that there are 3,600 people per square mile. Now I know it's mostly, I'm sure it's all probably inside that inner beltway, huh?
Oh, no, no, it's all residential. I mean, like I say, there's no zoning, so you could have a tire manufacturer next to a subdivision. So, yeah, there's very few areas that aren't considered residential along with commercial areas.
All right, let's talk about the fire department now.
Yes, sir.
So, pretty big department, 4,000 people.
Yes, sir.
So, you say 100 firehouses?
Yeah, that's close. It might be 93. I see you have 93 there. That's
Yeah, I
probably
got
the
this.
most accurate.
This is from Wikipedia, so I just found
Yeah,
this off of
that's probably close. Give or take one or two.
93. So, but 93 stations, only 8, but not 93 engines, 88 engines. Is there some firehouse might just be the ARF, I
There's a
guess?
few that have some quints and stuff that were annexed, and they're kind of way out. So we have a few that have that, and they're at much slower areas, and they're just kind of making do with what they have out there right now.
What's the staffing? 4 people on everything?
Yes, sir. 4. Yeah, when Jay Yonke was killed, we went to 4. We got 4 approved, and we're not going back. So.
Oh, so you were at 3 then?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow. Yeah,
Ideal staffing was 4, but the minimum staffing was 3.
I got you. Same thing on the rescues. I know you have 3 of those
Yes, sir.
units.
Let's see. We have 10s, 11s. Yes, sir. 3. And they don't run like most rescues. They go on vehicle rescue, all the technical rescue stuff. They don't run like a New York rescue. They don't make every fire. Now, some of them do just because the guys on them want to make every fire, and they get out there and get added to them. But they're not required to. They're not dispatched on every. They're dispatched on every multiple, and then of course every kind of technical rescue.
I got you. So they might not go on the first alarm.
Right. Yeah.
So medic units, ALS medic units, are they 2 paramedics on there?
2 paramedics, ideally.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. We need about twice as many as both of those. We don't have enough people.
Right. Is there any other EMS? Like, is there a private system that might do some?
No, sir.
Some
No, we do
too,
all of our own medical and transport.
How many firehouses are at the airport?
I'm going to lie to you because I really don't know. I've only been out there about twice. I'm going to say, so we have 2 major airports here. So this is a wild guess, but I think there's 7 or 8 between the 2 of them.
I got you. What's you got? The George Bush, and what's the other one?
Hobby.
Okay. So you said district chief. That's what they call the battalion chiefs, is district?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's my buggy up there, top left.
Is is there like they split the city in half? Is there a division also above that?
Yes, sir. We have a deputy chief that 2 on duty every day that split the city in half. So anything I can't take care of, then they'll step in and take care of. They mostly do staffing and go to meetings with the assistants and things like that.
How many districts are there?
I think there's about 21.
Oh, okay. Yeah, pretty big.
Yeah. It's big.
What is this little unit down here?
So that used to be, we were doing a squad program. That used to be the paramedic unit. And then our recent fire chief did away with that program. And now they're just in a transport unit like the ambulance 8 there. I'd like to see us go back to the squad program because it kept the medics in service more, but for whatever reason, they changed.
So 88 engines, like 38 ladder trucks.
Yes, sir.
All right, good. So you want to talk about the fire?
Okay.
This incident was kind of that north, that Kingwood area up here.
Yes, sir.
And what do you get on a house fire? 3 engines,
No,
2
chiefs,
ladder
2
trucks.
chiefs, 4 engines, 2 trucks, EMS units, super and safety officers.
Is that what you get on pretty much all your fires?
Now, on our residential, then we have a high-rise box, and they change, but predominantly that's what you're going to get.
All right. So they would get 4 engines and 2 trucks on this house.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So this fire came in as a
Oh,
shed on fire. So initially they only sent a still. So that was the initial engine company that went by itself when they dispatched this fire.
oh. So they sent 104 by themselves.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And you say the shed, that's this attached. So it wasn't, it was only like 4 foot deep, or how deep, how big, you know how big the shed was?
No, it was like an outbuilding. They thought it was like a Morgan building or one of those shed type buildings that was on fire. The guy did reloading for guns and ammo and that type of thing. But about halfway there, they realized someone had called and said that was attached to the home. So they upgraded the response, but engine 104 was already rolling that way when they upgraded it.
So in that area, how far behind would your second engine be?
I would think they're probably 5 or 6 minutes, maybe even up to 7. It's one of our longer response times that you're going to have is going to be up there, because I'm not exactly how many stations are up there now, but I think there's about 4 for that area. And so they're a little spread out, lots of cul-de-sacs and, not real easy territory to get through, large houses, big setbacks, just like this one. So they're a little spread out, and it takes typically some seniority to get out there. So the guys go there for a reason, as a general rule, and no disrespect to them, but a lot of them are kind of done. They're trying to ease on out of their career, or they don't want to work downtown. They want to work where it's slower and a little easier pace.
So this is a probably average size house out there?
Say that again?
You think this house, this fire, the house that was on fire, was about average size for those houses out there?
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, that's average.
Because it was about 4,000 square feet.
Yeah, it was big.
All right, so the outbuilding or the attached shed was on fire. It was pretty well going when they got there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, it was heavily involved, and there was a lot to this fire, and I wasn't there, and so I don't ever want to feel like I'm critiquing it, because I don't know. I just wasn't there, but there are things that that I know went wrong, and Danny and I, we had worked together, and really a lot of this that I speak of is just the failures that I had as far as his fireground tactics and what he did. But yeah, there was fire in that Delta side, and when the captain arrived, he had experience. He was on overtime that day, not the normal captain, but he realized pretty quickly that fire had moved into the voids and was traveling up into the second floor.
I appreciate you qualifying that you were not there. This fire, as a lot of these fatality fires do, they have reports that give us a pretty good description of what happened. I know the Texas insurance, right? The Department of Insurance did a report, which is pretty thorough. And the NIOSH report also gives us a pretty good description of kind of what happened. So again, we'll just, we're going to speak to what we do know about that. So again, we know that when they got there, they had fire on this Delta side here, and they originally turned their attention to that fire, right? They stretched a line over there.
Right.
They were trying to get into the garage?
Right. So what I understand was the first lineman pulled the line and went over there to the Delta side and started hitting that fire from the exterior. And then Danny and the captain, he was attempting to do a 360. Apparently he looked into the garage to see if the fire had migrated into the garage. He didn't really see anything. and went around to the, I guess, Bravo side to try to look. Couldn't really get around that way. And then they went back to the front door and started working on the front door and forcing entry there.
The initial line went to the side, and then the captain and Danny decided they were going to go inside. So they go to the Alpha side, right, and go into the front door. And then their attention got directed upstairs.
Right.
And like you said,
go ahead.
Like you said, the fire over here got into the void spaces on this second floor.
Yes,
which
sir.
then got into the attic, right?
Right. Yes, sir. From what I understand, they had smoke pushing from the attic spaces and the eaves. And when they did get that front door open, then they realized, there was basically no front door or fire on the first floor. It was clear there, but they could see heavy smoke on the second, and they started to go up the stairwell. I also understand that the captain had called for that initial line to come back around to the Alpha side and go through the front door. But you can see the stretch there went around those trees. And from what I understand, about halfway up the stairs is as far as he got with that line. The solid red is the second line that they pulled, I believe.
So was they were poking holes up there to see where the fire was?
I believe what occurred is the attic access was pulled.
Okay. And then at some point, right, Danny kind of went over to a different room away from the captain.
Yes, sir. He got separated and went into a sewing type room. And then that's where
the other firefighter from 104 was with the captain.
Right, right. I think a lot of confusion occurred in the stairwell, and with the second crew and everybody trying to kind of get organized, and the line wasn't getting up the stairs, and then they evacuated the structure. And some of this, I'll be honest with you, is some of this is my assumptions because of the fires I've made and how I know things typically go. And so I'll tell you if I think it's what I think happened, because I don't actually know everything.
Yeah, no, understood. And reading the report, it does sound like there was some confusion. 104 was coming out, 102 was going up.
Yes, sir.
There was obviously a fire in the attic area.
Yes, sir.
It sounds like Danny got off the line and over to the sewing room.
Mm-hmm.
Then ultimately, right, something happened. He ran out of air, or he didn't have enough air. This report, I was surprised because in the NIOSH report, I've never really seen them come up with suggest scenarios for what happened. Right. And in the report, it talks about a scenario of did he not get enough air? Did he pull his mask off? They said that I guess it appeared that he did pull his mask off at one time.
Yes. Yeah, his mask was found up above his nose and mouth. Again, it's my assumption. There's just so much to the story, but you got to understand Houston Fire Department culture and then where Danny was in that culture. This is probably the first fire Danny had made of any significance in 20 years. It could have easily been the first time he had put his gear on in 20 years because he had been assigned to that medic unit for so long. And I didn't spend any time with him to bring him up to speed, and that was a failure on my part. And I know he was losing a lot of air trying to force that front door, and I'm just guessing somebody probably turned his bottle off because they didn't want that regulator swinging around and him losing all that air. That's probably what I would have done. That's why my assumption is that you got to get this guy under control, and if he's losing all this air, we need to make sure he doesn't lose it all. So someone may have reached up and turned his bottle off. And then when it was time to make entry, I'm just guessing again that maybe he just reached back and turned it once or twice because the captain takes off and he wants to keep up with him. And I think he had system starvation up there when he started really pulling on that air pack and he was afraid and he was in a bad situation. I think he pulled on that air pack and it just quit on him, and he grabbed that face piece and yanked it, because we've all seen so many guys, you know, at least I have, if you put them in a wire box, put them in a really bad situation, when they get into that panic mode, lots of times they just grab that face piece and pull. And just the way he looked and everything, it seems like that's what possibly could have happened.
And the problem with doing that in training, right, is that the air is good, that you're not sucking in anything bad.
Right.
So you don't get that immediate slap on the hand that, hey, don't take your mask off. Right.
That's right. Right. Yeah. There's no consequence to it there. So, you know, that's one of the things I just wish I would have gone over with him is, you know, the very simple things that he did in the fire academy, get down low, you know, all of those things that we know. But if you don't practice those, they don't become muscle memory in that panic situation. What are you going to do? And I think he pulled his face piece and he took a breath or two and he collapsed and died.
Again, I think that a lot of us have Danny's that we can put a finger on, right? That the ultimate nice guy that you know, you want him to succeed, but then, you know, all right, we're operating with 3 today, right?
Right.
And then when it becomes where he's, you know, in that position, right? Because most of the time, especially I'm sure downtown, there's 40 firefighters there, pretty quick. But out there on the in the outside of the city, everybody's important there, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, you count on everybody that's there, and you know, he wasn't the only one. There was a lot of guys that maybe weren't up to par, and it's just really unfortunate that the way it occurred. But that's one reason I speak of Danny, because like I say, I talk about my failures, not Danny's failures, my failures as a leader, because I know there's a Danny in almost every single fire station in this country, a guy who maybe he's just given up on the job and he's not quite where he needs to be, or he never was, or you know, whatever it is. There's problems that we have. And if you do like I did and just kick the can down the road, it'll kill a guy. I mean, literally. And, you know, you have to address those issues and deal with them, even though they're going to make you uncomfortable, hurt someone's feelings, their dad might get mad at you, whatever it is. You have to address that, set expectations, and hold people accountable to that, because their life, your life, and somebody out there on the street, their life depends on that.
Yeah, when you told me your story, I had no idea where it was going, and then for you to, I mean, you really, I mean, you face that, right? And now you are speaking about it, and while I'm sure it's a burden, but by talking about it and hopefully convincing other people to take that step, right? Like you said. I mean, especially officers, right? That's why they pay you that extra money. And while nobody wants to be a dick, I mean, we have to face it, because like what happened with you, this is that example. And hopefully, you know, we're all like, yeah, that story made me do this and we'll never hear this again.
Right.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it changed me completely on how I do things and how I lead and everything else. I'm just so disappointed that it happened, but I really believe Danny has touched more people than he probably ever could have, just being a paramedic in the city of Houston, you know, because I've talked to a lot of people and I share these things and how it did change me and how I changed everything I do. Because, you know, I just didn't want to address a problem. And I didn't, like you said, want to be the bad guy. And I was young. I didn't know how to handle that situation. I was a good fireman because the city of Houston in 1990, and probably today, you know, there's no such thing as a safety culture. We just went and put fires out, you know, and that was our goal. And the bigger, better you were, the better off they liked you. But so tactically, I did a really good job. But as a leader, and far as having a problem with somebody, because he came to me as a paramedic to be retrained. So he was on the medic. It didn't really affect what I was doing. I was on an engine company, a very busy territory. But after a few months, they decided they would take his paramedic away from him, wasn't going to let him do that anymore. And they left him there with me to get on the engine. And that's where I thought, whoa, what the heck? Because I was kind of an autopilot. The guys on the back were outstanding. We made fires almost every day. So there wasn't a whole lot of stuff to do or with them. And Danny got there and he had a lot of issues. And I just didn't address them. I just kind of thought, well, he'll get better in time, instead of really spending time with him, because he had been a firefighter for 20 years. I didn't want to embarrass him. I didn't want to be uncomfortable. And when it really came to a head, my guys were complaining and everything else, because he put a lot of pressure on them because they were having to do double duty. He came in and said, Captain, I want to go. I want to go down to Kingwood. There's a posting. I can get it. I'll be gone in next week. And I know I can get that position because I've got 20 years as a firefighter. And so when he left the station, I said, man, enjoy your time in Kingwood. You're going to retire soon, and nothing will ever happen to you out there. And he left the station, and I knew he probably couldn't put his gear on, couldn't have called a Mayday, didn't know anything about system starvation, just a lot of stuff. But I just assumed he'd be okay. And a few months later, he was dead.
I mean, it's like a TV show, right? It's like one of those Chicago fires or something, or
yeah, it's a bad drama, right? Yeah,
and it happened.
It was real.
Happened. Yeah. And I mean, this is why I'm so happy that we made the connection, because going into this, right? I've read the story before. In fact, I featured him in a previous Mayday Monday where we were focusing on SCBA. Mm-hmm. And the fire really didn't, it didn't really raise up any hairs on the back of your neck about,
right,
anything unusual. And again, not that any fire is
sure.
Less important than the other, but it was
right.
What can I learn?
As dramatic as some.
Right? Yeah. Use SCBA. Yeah. And now, wow. Yeah. Clyde, that's an amazing story. And again, I hope that it's the last time it ever happens. I'm a shudder. Like you said, that every firehouse has got a Danny, and what can we do?
Sure. Yeah. You got to address that problem, whether you're the captain or the guy riding with him. I mean, you got to talk to him and say, hey, man, because it could be you. We always think, he won't be able to save the baby on the second floor. Well, the baby might be you. You know what I mean? If you get into trouble, he's got to help you too. So if he's in a bad way and doesn't have the skill level that he needs, somebody needs to address it and work on it, and bring him up to pace. Not all of us are built the same way, but we got to set an expectation and hold people accountable. And that doesn't always make you everybody's friend, but it's okay. They need leadership, not more friends. It's nice if they'll be your friend, but it's not a priority.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely spot on. So this is the fire here, and you can see that this fire in the shed ultimately extended up into the attic space over the master bedroom, and then over top of this garage here. The initial hand did initially go there and then go into the front door. Backup also went in there from the same fire truck and it went to the same place, right? It also came up short on that stairwell.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me, one of the things in the report was the GRACE system? What is the GRACE the Grace
Right,
system?
so the Grace accountability is an electronic accountability system. So just like an integrated pass, but it sends a signal to the chief's car. So if you go down, then the integrated pass will go off, and we also get a signal in the car that you're in alarm, is what we always say. So it's just to let the incident commander know that you're not moving.
And what's the procedure? You call them and say, hey, are you okay?
Yeah. So this is another thing, if you look at that now, a lot of things that just didn't go real smoothly. My personal, when we had it, we don't have it anymore, was because you get a lot of false alarms with it. So typically I have a driver that would take care of the Grace accountability, one of my guys that I pull, and they call them twice. Hey, you're in alarm. Hey, you're in alarm. If they don't answer, they tell me, and then I upgrade it to a higher alarm and call the Mayday. And then if it was just a false alarm, you were on the wrong channel, then I deal with that, and you probably won't want to do that again. But not every chief runs it that way, but I took it real seriously, and that's what I do.
So you say you don't use it anymore, but is it just went to pass alarms now?
No, we're going to a new SDI system. I don't know, not a fan, but whatever. I probably shouldn't say that, but it is what it is. It's a computerized accountability board to me, and it's just the more you pay attention to a computer, especially a guy like me who didn't grow up with them, the less time I'm looking at a fire. So I need to be paying attention to what's going on.
So you guys have drivers, aides for the chiefs?
Yes, sir. Yeah. And my driver doesn't do the accountability system. He's a mini me. We have the same accountability board if we're using that. And then most of the time, if it's anything of, if it's not a high rise or something, I get out of the car. So he'll just follow me and note take and do whatever I need him to do when I'm out of the car. But I like to stand in front of them. I like smelling them and hearing them, and I just get a better sense of the flow of the fire and what's going on.
So let's go back to the you are a district chief. How many companies do you have in your district?
I have 4 stations in my district, about 60 guys.
60 guys.
Yes, sir.
So all of those are double houses?
Yes, sir. Well, I have one single, one engine and ambulance company, station 25. So I have, if you're counting apparatus, I have 6 total heavy apparatus. 2 stations are singles with EMS units, and then I have 1 truck. At station 8, we have 2 pumpers, high-rise pumper, and then it's a regular pump or high-pressure pump.
Oh, and those are staffed with a crew, each of those?
Yes, sir. 4. Yes, sir. There's 16 guys at my station.
Oh, yeah.
Make about 60 runs a day out of there.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's going to be tough. You can't be, can't not want to do the job there, huh?
Yeah. You don't get much sleep either. Even the old guy doesn't get much sleep.
Yeah. You gotta tell them to turn the lights off or something. Huh?
Yeah. I wish we would spend the money on that. Yeah. Figure out how to do that.
All right. So, 6 companies. That means 6 company officers?
Yes, sir.
So, with this, have you imparted enough to them that you don't have to like micromanage that? I mean, they understand, you know what I mean? I mean, I would think that you'd be like peering into what they're doing every day.
Yeah. Now I will tell you, I'm a real, hands-on kind of chief. I call myself a kitchen table chief. They didn't like it when I first got there because they thought I was spying on them, but I like to be part of the crew. I like a comfortable situation where they're okay to talk with me and hang out with me. And that takes creating relationships with them and creating a culture that, hey, the chief's out here, drink coffee, bullcorning about what we did on the weekend, and that's fine. But when it's time to go to work, I'm the boss. And I call them free thinkers and not freelancers. I set expectations. Hey, this is what I want you to do. on just about anything we can come up with. And, you know, if it's beans on the stove and you know it's beans on the stove and there's lavender smoke coming out of the front door, stage at the corner and don't pile up 14 of you on the front porch. There's no reason for you to be there. But if it's, you know, we're losing the whole block and it makes sense for you to lay your own line on the Charlie side, just tell me that's what you're going to do. And more than likely, you're going to get the, yeah, do that. You know what I mean? Let them think a little bit and work. But my guys now, they understand what I expect from them because we talk about it. We talk about it before the fire. We talk about it after the fire every day, every time, discuss what went right, what went wrong, how could we do better. Most people would think I was really nitpicky, but it's not nitpicky. I just want them to be better every single time. If they pulled the pumper up 10 more feet and it made the stretch better, guess what? Then our push is better and our search is better, and it just makes sense. Don't go with, man, y'all did a great job when you know they didn't do a great job. You know, let's talk about it. We're grown men, and it's a badge off discussion. They'll ask me questions, and it works great for me. It may not work for everybody, but you know, it also makes them comfortable to come talk to me when there's problems. We had a guy that was going to attempt suicide, and because they felt comfortable with me, they stopped me when I got out of my truck at 5 in the morning, and you know, we got that guy a lot of help, and he's a completely different person now. And me, when I came in, I wouldn't have walked to my chief and said anything but good morning, because you didn't do that, you know. So yeah, it works for me. Yeah, I set those expectations. I hold them accountable to it. If they're not meeting expectations, then we figure out why, and we work on improving them, or they go somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree, right? You don't want them to waste that 24 hours, right? And,
Oh, yeah.
And they should leave tomorrow morning better than they came yesterday morning.
Certainly, absolutely. Yeah, and you know, we have a good time and we relax and everything. You know, 60 runs a day, you're going to take a break, but you know, they're going to train every day and they're going to get out there and treat the public right and treat each other right. And it's just what we do. That's what we ought to be doing anyway.
So, what is there anything that specifically you tell them that you have learned from this incident? I mean, you know, that things that you changed. Obviously, I know you say you have changed, but anything that you can put a finger on that you're telling your guys, or
I don't know if there's any like one thing I've said, but it's you know, kind of like what I've just been talking about. I mean, I became a servant leader. There's no one more important to me than those people I work with and the people that I serve. And it has nothing to do with me. So that's a big part of it, is creating that relationship with them so I understand what's going on. That's why I sit at the kitchen table half the day. I don't go in my office. There's nothing in there I need to do. And that isolates me from them. So I sit around the table, we drink coffee, we have a good time, we talk. So I understand more about what's going on with them every day. And then the expectations really is the biggest thing. If you're not meeting expectations, and I don't mean, you know, it's like performance standards, right? Performance standards are a joke. I know we have to have a measuring stick, but that's really our measuring stick. I mean, we need to be a whole lot better than that. So we'll set out a plan for a new guy, from the firefighter to the captain. I talk to all of them and what's expected of them. And then we work on getting them to that level. And, you know, that's really what changed for me, just having difficult conversations, you know, and what's going on with you? Why were you great the last couple months, but this month you're really having a hard time? What is it? And usually, you know, if it's family or something, then, you know, that's what I'm there for too. I need to help these guys out. And because what we do, as you know, is serious, and, you know, kill any of us anywhere we work. And it's just too important. It's too important to let go. And I kick that can down the road. I let someone else deal with the problem, and it got somebody killed. And, you know, he was a grown man, and I was the 6th captain he had worked for. So it wasn't just me, but I could have made a difference. If you look at those pictures of the fire, you know, the smoke was bad, but it wasn't there long. So if he'd have just got on the floor, he probably would have survived, you know. But I think he pulled that face piece off while he was standing, and that's what got him. The ventilation hole was about the same time that he went into alarm. So the smoke was bad on top of him, but it didn't last long.
So one thing that reading the report, right, a couple things that stood out. One of them, there was a picture that they have in the NIOSH report of that double door, and it looks like the door, the one door that didn't open, that the handle had been jostled with.
Yeah,
and he's right there by a door, you know. That's what's so frustrating. Is like it's glass door too. It wasn't a, you know, if he just
could have leaned on that door and got out of it. Yeah.
If he had fell that way, he'd be out on the balcony, you know.
Right.
I mean, we can what if this thing all day, but
and that's another one of my assumptions, you know, that I think he was in a panic there because he was afraid. He had been separated from his crew. He didn't know how to handle that. He didn't know how to work his radio correctly. All of those things I should have taken care of the first day he was there. And then he just grabbed that face piece and pulled, I think, and he took about 2 breaths and he collapsed right there by those doors. Because Mo Davis is one of them that actually found him and pulled him out. And he had 500 pounds left in his air bottle. He was right there at those doors. And but he had soot. When they intubated him, had soot all the way down in him. So he had breathed that stuff. And but what's interesting is, you know, you look at the vent hole and how much was coming out of there. That was the same time he was going into alarm. But if you look at the walls, there's no staining of smoke on the walls. So Mo said it was really hot up there and it was nasty, but I just don't think it lasted long. I think the hole did what it was supposed to do and it pulled it off of him quickly because there's no demarcation line or anything on the walls. So.
Yeah. One thing too, they talk about, and you talked about it, the system starvation, right? Where basically, you know, and I've been there too, right? Where you crack it 1 turn or 2 turns, but not 8 turns, right? Because I know it takes 8 turns to get that thing all the way open. And you think, and most of the time, 2 turns was enough.
Right.
But they're going to meet that one fire where you're demanding more than it will give.
Sure.
And that's exactly what this is. This isn't the only NIOSH report that talks about system starvation. And again, right, this is what we think. It's indications, but I mean, and that's the thing, is that this was all a basic fire, right? Everything that was in this thing, that if you look at the things that didn't go right, were basics.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There was no advanced firefighting here. It was all 101.
That's part of the class is talk about General Mattis and his brilliance in basics. You know, that's what he said. It all goes down to basics. Their stretch was not great, but when was the last time they had practiced a stretch out there? No, it's been a while because they don't want to. They want to watch football or whatever, you know. No offense to those guys, but they do. We all get where we're done, I guess. You know, forcible entry was difficult, but it's a basic skill. The air pack stuff, the Mayday stuff, you know, this is a simple thing of, you know, again, I'm assuming, but he knew the fire was in the attic. Someone pulled the opening to the attic. Well, the front door is wide open right behind him. So what we know about flow paths and pressures and, you know, it all sat down on top of them, I believe, and that's what scattered them. And then the line, because he thought the line was going to be right there with him, and it wasn't. And then they couldn't get where they wanted to go, and bottle clanking in the stairwell, and then it was time to get out and regroup. So, and they just missed Danny because it was a mixed crew. It was an overtime captain. Danny was new, so probably didn't spend a lot of time talking and, hey, who are you? How long you been here? What are you doing? You know, so when he was missing, no one even knew he was gone.
Yeah, again, another part of that Chicago fire script of a crazy show that you see happened, and it happened.
It's the stuff happens at every fire we go to, and it's like a domino, right? You set your dominoes up, and as long as the one domino falls all by itself, it really doesn't matter. But it's when we get them in line perfectly, and all those little simple dominoes start hitting each other, that's where your line of duty death comes. You know, it's just a link in a chain. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, again, what we need to do, right, is make sure that he doesn't die in vain, and learn
Absolutely.
from this and pass it on. And again, I think this is probably more from a, like, I really like to do skills, right, that we can kind of put our finger on. Well, the
Yeah.
really, this one really talks. This one speaks to those people who want to become an officer one,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if
Yeah.
you think about becoming an officer, do you really understand that it's more than just moving from the left seat to the right seat or moving from the back seat to the front seat, right? There's a lot of responsibility, and the one of the things that is to get those guys home the next day, right? So if you're thinking about that, if you're thinking about becoming an officer, are you ready for that position? Are you ready for that burden of command? Because it really is.
Absolutely. And you can't assume that they know what what you think they should know. So if you walk to any fireman and go, "Hey, you got any problems putting your gear on?" He's going to tell you no. But there's plenty of them out there who can't even do that. And you just got to make sure they're on top of it and find out if they can call a mayday, if they can force entry, whatever it is. You don't have to embarrass people and be a bully, but figure out a way to get everybody involved and let's see what their skill level is. And if they're lacking somewhere, then create a mentorship or pull them off to the side or whatever you need to do to get their skill level up, because it's going to matter. It's going to matter at some point.
Very well. And I think that that's where the importance here, and hopefully everybody understands from Mayday Monday, is that we don't want to go back to basics. We want to make sure that we keep with the basics,
Right.
right? And you can't, like he said, you can't assume anything. I would assume that a guy with 20, 25 years on has now refined his way to put his gear on. And he's done it.
Sure.
He knows exactly how to put it on, but
Right.
that's not true, right? And,
No,
and,
no.
and, so we have to face that because it can rear its ugly head, much like we see here. So a couple of things I like to do is to people that come on, if there's two or three things, I know there's so much here, but if there's two or three things that you think people should be able to take from your experience and from Danny's fire, what could you pass on to someone there? It's, a concise thing that they could take from this.
Um, well, we've discussed a lot of things that I think are super important, but like one thing specifically is you think guys know how to call a mayday. We talk about it all the time, but I had the opportunity to teach 4,000 firefighters the International's Fireground Survival class. And we found that most guys don't know how to do that. And I've had several guys from that class come and tell me that class saved my life. And I'm like, why? Because you learned how to crawl through a little hole in a wall? And they're like, no, because I knew exactly how to call the mayday and I had created muscle memory. Because when you're done with that class, you call it about 150, 200 times. So that's one thing. Like we pick a day, it's Thursday. Every Thursday that rotates around on our shift, we do some sort of firefighter survival. And one of which is calling the mayday, exactly what we want to do. And then myself as a chief, most chiefs sit in an office somewhere when that's going on, when they're crawling through a wire box or whatever. I run the mayday. So when you call the mayday, you hear me respond to you, and I go through my system and protocol to run the mayday because that's my muscle memory. I've crawled through the little holes. I'm kind of over that, but you need me on top of my game. So that's one thing that we do. Holding people accountable. I've said that a million times, but it's just so important. And understanding your crew. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses. You got to understand where these guys are at in their life and where they are in their career. And it's your job to take them under your wing and make them better because you're only as strong as your weakest link. So we want to do a great job. The people out there deserve a great job, and that takes effort on our part. Basic skills have to be a priority. If you don't know what to do on a Tuesday, go stretch hose because you may have done it a million times, but as long, that has to be muscle memory, because basics is what killed Danny, the very basic skills. And you don't want to always be there, because you should have those, but you'll be surprised how many guys at your station have let that lapse because maybe you hadn't made a fire in months. They're more concerned about what's on Yellowstone, those type of things. And you have to get out there and just keep their minds turning all the time and put their hands on things.
I hope they're not concerned about those cheating Houston Astros, but we can talk about that another day.
Hey, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, right? So
I guess. No, good stuff. And as much as we pound about this stuff on Mayday Monday, it's great to have somebody else come on and also harp on the same thing. Again, it's all about the basics, folks, and it's really, you don't have to stray away from those things to keep yourself alive and keep others alive. Clyde, that was amazing story, and I really think it's great that you have now taking that and you're pushing that on a new crop of firefighters in Houston and everywhere. It sounds like you get around and teach about this. So that's awesome that you're willing to spread that. I know a lot of guys, they might crawl up and not want to share that message where they did have a part and screw up something. It's tough, right? And it takes a tough guy to do that.
You don't want to admit that you made a mistake, but I'm not the only one. I'm just the one talking about it, and none of what I talk about really has anything to do with what Danny did. It was all about what I did and how I failed him, and it speaks to people, because I think if you haven't been in that position, you probably will be at some point, and it helps, to understand how to deal with that. And even our fire department, they started an acclimation program. If you're off the engine more than 6 months, you go back to acclimation and be retrained. That was how they dealt with it. But I personally deal with it, every day, really.
No, again, thank you for coming on. Thank you for telling your story. And hopefully it will. What we're doing today honors the memory of Danny and keeps it from happening to anybody else out there.
Absolutely. Great guy, wonderful guy. And I really think he's touching more people than he ever could have. I'm just sad for his family that it had to be this way.
I think, Clyde, and this month's skill drill is a favorite here at Mayday Mondays. It's the shake and bake drill, where we break down our SCBA into different parts and put it all back together. And I know that you're probably not going to go to a fire and find your SCBA hidden throughout the house. You're probably going to have it on your back. But this drill, the objective of this is that you become more intimate, you become more familiar, you really know all of the pieces and where they go. You break down the whoever sets this up, you break down the SCBA into the different parts: regulator, back frame, cylinder, face piece, and you put them around a room. You have the crew go in and they search for the pieces. When they find all the pieces, they put it together, put it on, and then they exit as a crew. If you really want to ramp things up, again, add some stress. If you make half of the bottles empty and the other half have some air in them, that means they have to buddy breathe. A couple of them are going to have to buddy breathe. Another thing you can do to raise that stress is play music. They can't necessarily think, right? There's always that going on, and it agitates them a little bit. Whatever you do, just kind of ramp that stuff up. Here's some pictures of some crews on when I was a battalion to go around and do this. And you can see you just hide them around the bunk room, and then they go in and search, put it together. Here's a video. Let me show you this video here of one of the crews doing it. Let me share my screen again. Here you'll see it's in a locker room. Crews are going around to find it. Once they find it, they together, then they exit as a crew. So again, not a drill where you're going to go find your SCBA, but something to kind of emphasize all the parts, how it goes together. again, maybe you could raise some stress on them and have them put it together just so we get really intimately in with our SCBA. That's our Mayday Monday for this year, this month, for July of 2022. Thank you, Clyde, for coming on and telling us your story and story of Danny. Everybody out there, we probably have somebody like that, and you know, as much as they're a nice guy, we want to make sure that they're firefighters also. The SCBA is our lifeline, and it allows us to do some great things on fire grounds that we never could have done before SCBA. But we want to make sure that we're intimately comfortable with that, with how that thing works. Because if it fails, we have to be ready to be able to react and still survive. So thank you both. Thank you, Fire Engineering, for another Mayday Monday. Please come back, and we'll see you in August for another edition. Thank you.